Hey friends, it's Loree with the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com. Welcome back to my kitchen. Tonight I'm going to show you a couple of ideas for in-home date nights. So as our children have been growing up, sometimes it just hasn't been very convenient for us to be able to get out, go to a restaurant, and honestly, sometimes with a baby, it's just been more comforting to be at home. And even though our children are just a little bit older now, it's still great to just be able to put them to bed, have a nice dinner together, not have to worry about going to a restaurant. And we don't live in an area where there's a lot of crowds, but we also don't live in an area where there's a lot of options for restaurants either. But if you do live in an area where there's a lot of crowds, sometimes it's not fun to have to fight the crowds. And honestly, we find the conversation is better and we just have such a great time sitting at home and chatting, just some quiet time, kids in bed and all of that. So I'm just gonna give you a couple of ideas of dinners that you could make and just enjoy together as a couple at home. And hopefully this inspires you and gives you some really good ideas. So we're going to be making a garlic buttered deer steak, venison steak. So yummy, so good if it's cooked the right way. And we're gonna make some French fries, because that was my husband's request, French fries from potatoes we grew in our garden. Then I'm gonna also steam up some broccoli and cauliflower we grew in the garden. And then I'm gonna show you a separate meal, and that's going to be some wild Alaskan salmon. So my husband's aunt and uncle live in Alaska, and when they come to visit, they bring us salmon and we send them beef. So it works out, it's a great trade. We enjoy having a bit of it in the freezer just to spice up our normal diet. So we're gonna make some creamy baked salmon, and I'm gonna show you how to make some fettuccine alfredo with sourdough pasta, and we're also gonna make an apple pie and make some ice cream as well. So it's gonna be simple. And when our kids were smaller, I would just make enough for the two of us. But now that the kids are bigger, sometimes they get jealous. They want some deer steak too, or they really love French fries and they're not happy with just leftovers. So oftentimes I go ahead and make the normal amount, feed the kids, put them to bed, and then we just enjoy a nice evening eating together and whatever. So that's what I'm gonna show you how to do. I hope that's inspiring to you. Come along and let's get started with the French fries. Welcome back to Wagon Wheel Homestead, where each week we share with you homesteading tips and tricks and teach you how to live a simple and sustainable life. My husband and I and our 5 children enjoy living close to the land on our 40-acre homestead in Nebraska, where we utilize the self-sufficient skills we have learned over a lifetime of homesteading. I was blessed to grow up gardening and preserving food since I was a little girl, and my husband grew up cattle ranching. Now we're able to use those skills to feed our family without having to purchase very much from outside sources like the grocery store. While we seek to be self-sufficient, we are mindful daily that we are really God-sufficient, as He is the one who sends the sunshine and the rain to feed us and our livestock. Along with gardening and preserving all of our vegetables, we raise our own beef, milk Jersey cows, make our own dairy products, and bake with sourdough. By involving our children in this lifestyle, we are seeking to preserve these old-fashioned skills by passing them down to the next generation. Join us as we share with you our journey and teach you how to grow a simple, sustainable life. My favorite way to make French fries is just to get a knife and cut the fries just real rustic. And I usually just slice them up, toss them on a cookie sheet. It's helpful if you put a little bit of tallow on the cookie sheet first. And I know there's fancy French fry cutters that work well, but this is just fast and easy and seems to be my favorite way for making fries. It's helpful if the fries don't cover each other up on the cookie sheet. So, if it's spread out thinly enough that they're just one layer. And then I'm just taking tallow and drizzling it. This is beef tallow, and I'll put a link here to how I rendered that. I just drizzle it over the top of the fries and sprinkle it with some garlic salt and pepper and stick them right into a 400 or even 450 degree oven. Just depends on what else I'm baking. If I need to have the temperature lower or higher, of course, a higher temperature will bake them faster. It usually takes about an hour. Then the salmon, I'm just adding some Miracle Whip, and sometimes I make my own mayo, but I didn't this time. Some garlic salt, garlic powder, and black pepper, and I'm just going to sprinkle that onto the thawed piece of salmon. This is our favorite way. We also like to grill salmon, but we really like to make it this way, especially in the winter when it's cold outside. Then I'm just going to sprinkle some sourdough breadcrumbs over the top, so if you ever have bread that doesn't turn out, you can just toast it a little bit in the oven and grind it up for breadcrumbs. It's really nice to have on hand. Sprinkling it with a little Parmesan cheese, and that's going right into the oven, right alongside the fries. Usually it only needs to cook for 10 or 15 minutes. Then I'm going to get started on the deep dish apple pie. So as my family has grown, I have basically quit making pies in like pie pans because it just doesn't produce enough pie. So I usually make a big pie. This is like 4 pie crusts, and you can find this recipe at the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com. Just search for sourdough pie crust. I just made this earlier in the day and just had it in the refrigerator. It didn't take me very long. I usually use my Bosch mixer to make it. So what I do is I just put them into like a 12-inch cast iron skillet, and the cast iron bakes the crust so beautifully. It's always really nice and flaky, and then it's a big enough pie that it lasts us, well, sometimes only for a day, but certainly for more than a meal. And for this, I'm going to use apples that I canned in my pantry, and I have a video on how to can apples. And these are just sweetened apples, so I could use them in muffins or in anything I wanted to, but for apple pie, it's really nice to have these on hand because I can make this pie in less than 5 minutes as long as I have my crust ready. So I literally just dump the apples into the pie crust, and then I add a little bit of flour. See, the apples are already sweetened, so I just need a little bit of flour to thicken any juice that might be still on them, and some cinnamon. And that's all I do. In fact, I made this for potluck at church the other day, and yeah, it took me 5 minutes before we left to mix this up, and then I was able to bake it and have it fresh, ready for potluck, which was really nice. So yeah, just add a little bit of flour, probably about a quarter to a half cup, depending on how much moisture you have in your pie. A couple tablespoons of cinnamon, and I just gently stir it around right in the pie shell. And then just roll out your top crust and put it right over the top. It works so well, and it's really nice to have pie, especially apple pie that my family loves so much, be such a fast and easy thing to make. And then to flute the edges, I just take my thumb and a couple fingers and just push the edges up and kind of seal it. You just don't want the juice bubbling out if possible. You can take the extra pie dough, if you have any extra pie dough, and roll it out and just put it on a cookie sheet in your oven and then just eat it for a snack. It's really good. You can just bake it for, 10 minutes or something like that. Definitely is not something you want to waste. It's sort of like having crackers. Then I just cut steam vents. You can cut fancy ones or just simple ones like I did today. You want a spot for the steam to be able to escape the pie. And I like to add a little bit of butter. Sometimes I use melted butter. Today I'm just using regular butter. And a little bit of sugar to the top of my pie. It just looks so yummy because it kind of makes it a golden color, and it just tastes good as well. So that's something special that I usually do. And then you can bake that for about an hour in the oven at 350 to 375. Today I baked it a little warmer because I had the fries in the oven, but that's totally fine. So then every 15 or 20 minutes, you're going to want to use a metal spatula and stir up your fries. Just make sure they aren't sticking and turn them so they brown on all sides. And the tallow works the best for this. Now, if you don't have tallow, you can use any other kind of oil, but tallow is healthier and it's the best. It really handles frying well. or high temperatures. So that's usually what I choose to use, is just tallow. It's really a pretty easy way to use up a bunch of the potatoes in your pantry. By the way, we are doing a pantry challenge for the first 90 days of this year. So all of these meals were made with just what's in our pantry. So that's been really fun, and it's always a great way to save some extra money and be creative. So this is sourdough pasta that I also had made earlier in the day. You can find the recipe for that on the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com. And because it's fresh pasta, you only have to cook it for about 3 or 4 minutes. And I'm cooking it in hot boiling water with just some salt for flavor. The salmon is done. And again, you just cook it until it flakes easily with a fork. That's how you know that your salmon will be done. About 20 minutes is all it needs. So for the ice cream, I'm just adding cream, sugar, vanilla, and a tiny little bit of salt to my favorite winter ice in the description box below. You just push a button and in about an hour you have ice cream. It's been one of the best investments I've made in my kitchen, especially since we have our own milk from our own Jersey cows, because it's something that we can easily make all the time, and of course it doesn't have any preservatives in it. So for the venison steak, you can use regular steak as well. This is just what I have. So I am adding my steak to a really hot skillet, and I'm going to sear it. And I actually don't have any tallow or anything in the skillet. This is garlic butter steak, and sometimes you can cook it in tallow, but this is just steak I put into a dry skillet. Then I did add a bunch of garlic and some butter. And you just want to sear it, get it really hot, and then you can turn it down a little bit. And you just want to keep flipping your steak. You want it to be somewhat rare in the middle, or that's how we like ours, is medium rare in the middle. And so just liberally add salt and pepper. And yeah, pan fry your steaks in garlic butter, and you can kind of baste them with the garlic butter as you go. They're so delicious. Don't forget to keep checking the fries. By the way, I would not normally make these 2 meals at the same time, but these are 2 different meals that you could make, and so I just did make them at the same time so that I could show you. But you could mix and match however you choose. So then I have taken my pasta out of the pot. I've drained my pasta, and in the same pot I am just adding some butter, flour, salt and pepper, and some broth, a couple cups of chicken broth that I have canned in my pantry. And I'm making a fettuccine alfredo, or an alfredo sauce just from scratch. Works really well. It's sort of like making a gravy, only you're going to add cheese to it at the end and pasta. Super yummy. And I added a bunch of garlic to that as well, just to give it that garlic flavor. Adding in some more milk. And time to grate the cheese. And this is a good project to do close to the stove, because I can keep an eye on my steaks, because we don't want the steaks to be too overdone. This is homemade Asiago cheese that I made, and it's just been sitting in my cheese fridge. Really nice when you have your own dairy. I know not everybody can do that, but for us personally, when we got to where we could make our own dairy products, it made a huge, tremendous impact on our grocery bill, because there was so many things we were still buying, yogurt and cheese and all those kinds of things. And when you can make those from scratch and you have plenty of it, it really makes an impact on what you can cook and what it costs you. So then I'm just removing the steaks from the skillet. They're all done. I'm just going to let them rest off to the side. Be sure to get all the garlic. So yummy. Adding this beautiful sourdough pasta. If you've never had fresh pasta, you're missing out. It really is not hard to make, and it's so delicious. It always amazes me what you can make out of flour, water, and eggs, and in this case it has sourdough starter in it instead of water. So adding it to the cheese sauce and stirring it around. The fries are done. It looks so delicious. Broccoli that I just steamed up, it had been frozen in my freezer. And the pie was divine, as well as the ice cream. So just plating this up, I just did like a his and hers, surf and turf, for this one because I really like the salmon and the pasta. And of course, my husband prefers the meat and potatoes, which is fine. You know, he likes all of it, but that was his preference. And then, you know, I did feed the kids, obviously, and we just enjoyed a nice evening together. So I hope this has been inspiring to you. Let me know what kinds of things you like to make for in-home date nights. Maybe we'll all get more ideas. And if you enjoy videos like this, you want to learn more about how to cook from scratch, how to utilize things that you can produce on maybe your own homesteads or things that you can get from your local farmers at a reasonable cost, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We make 2 videos every week, and we are happy to share with you our journey. Pie and ice cream for dessert is always a good thing. Thanks for following along with today's video, and we will catch you next time.